affects my body in real time. My heart is affected by what I think, even to the point where my body, has v'shalom, can lose body fat because of worry. We're going to look at psukim. That kina and da'aga actually reduces body fat. That eventually reaches the bones, because in the words of Shlomo Melech, urkav atzamot kina. The bones literally rot from jealousy. Jealousy is not just a thought, it affects my heart and goes to every part of my body. So now, I close on a statement from Wendy Sagesi, who's a Jewish lady. Unfortunately, she married an Italian non-Jew. But I was in the audience with my wife. We were sitting and chatting with her. We had no idea she was the next speaker. I memorized the speech, and I'm going to tell it to you by heart. It's only 7 seconds. The next 45 minutes that was allotted to her was all questions like, how did she come to this clarity? She stood up there, having been introduced. She was in stage 4 cancer. And that particular cancer she had, she was already 4 years in. And most people don't survive up to 5 years. And she stands there, and she was 8 years in. She died after 9.5 years. And she stood up there and she said the following words: I have cancer. I'm not cancer. My body has cancer. I'm not my body. End of speech. There's a simple clarity that where I truly function is over here. And if I'm thinking about death, thinking about torture, thinking about hostage, I'm not saying don't go there ever, but I am saying that if I get sucked into that, it can help me know what I'm thinking. And that's why God gave us feelings. They are our friends. Our feelings are more obvious to us than what we're thinking, because it's just so obvious I'm thinking that I don't have to pay attention. So God gave us feelings to give me a sign that sends me to, what am I thinking? Oh, I'm feeling frustrated? Great, that means I'm experiencing frustrating thinking. Do I want to stay here, or do I want to switch? Do I want to look for a solution, or do I want to move on to something else? Oh, that's what I'm experiencing, my thoughts. No exceptions. Thank you for your patience. Any questions? Comments?
Are you going to teach how to move from thought to thought?
Yes. Yeah, I'm going to be sharing with you 28 metaphors. I'm not sure if I'll get through all of them. We've got 28 weeks of this for the students, so it's one metaphor a week. So I'll be going through those metaphors in the 10 weeks with you, and it's the metaphors that really help us to get a handle on how I'm actually experiencing what I'm thinking. And what's going to happen next, you tell me what will happen next if it's really true that I can switch from really thinking that you're making me mad to realizing it's my thinking of what you said or did that's making me mad. What might happen next? If I recognize that the true source, you might seem to be the trigger, but in reality, I've got to think about it to feel it. So what's the possible liberation that this whole concept is inviting us?
Doesn't hold power over you.
Sorry?
It doesn't hold power over you.
It doesn't have power with me.
I mean, it's very nice to say.
It's very nice to say. That's why I'll be sharing with you. It's a mature ladies group, so I can't do this with your daughters. But I'll be sharing with you people who've been through trauma that you and I would not say, I got off the phone and I was traumatized by that phone call. When we realize trauma is a word that we ought to be really reserving for serious, serious pain. So I'll be sharing you stories of people being through extraordinary trauma and it didn't affect their mind. And how were they able to do that? Yes?
Advice until next week, how to control the mind and anxiety in today's atmosphere.
What's the question, sorry?
Just advice until we're next week.
Right.
To control, I guess, thought for this atmosphere that we're in right now.
Right, so I'm going to share with you, we're living in like a self-help world where the how-to is what I really want to like get to. What I'm going to be sharing with you is something that is the how-to, but the how-to is because I understand how my mind is working. And that's the place I need to like kind of let penetrate deep inside me, so that not that I know this intellectually, that it's really my thinking, but I start to experience it. I'll give you an example. It happened to me. I love nature. And one of the things I loved about the house I lived in before is that all my neighbors, you couldn't see one house. When the foliage was out there, it was beautiful. And I had a young kid, a 14-year-old, who was suffering from terrible anxiety in my above-ground basement, and I was talking to him about this topic, that experiencing is what you're thinking. He's facing me here, and I'm facing all the windows to my backyard. My new neighbor, whose culture has a different relationship to nature, was cutting down one tree after the other. And I had never seen his house before when there's foliage. And meanwhile, I'm telling him that what you're really experiencing is what you're thinking. And it was so interesting to me that the moment it clicked that these trees are not going to grow in the next few weeks, it probably won't even grow in my lifetime. But if I'm going to focus on the fact that now I can't see this beautiful nature, then that's going to frustrate me. But if I want, and this just happened in like a click of a moment, I said if I want, I can look up and see the sky and enjoy the clouds. Every time I look at where the trees used to be, just look up and just enjoy the clouds. Why not? So I suddenly realized from the experience, it wasn't just an intellectual, I was talking about it, and then God sends me this Nisayan, right? And I love those trees. There was nothing wrong with them. They're not dead trees. So not an accusation against that neighbor, but it's so interesting when this sort of thing happens.
But you're saying that it can change your way of thinking. Can it change? Can it change the mitziut? How do you say that?
Excellent question. So how do I change the reality? Because the reality is still happening to me.
Right.
So I'll give you one of the most extreme examples is Dr. Viktor Frankl, when he was being operated on by the Nazis without anesthetic. He was what's called the father of logotherapy. Logo is really a Greek, the Latin word for meaning. So he developed a therapy. Therapy means healing. Therapy is a Hebrew term. That's where therapy comes from. He developed a way of thinking about what's the meaning in the pain. Because he would claim there's really two parts to pain. There's the physical metziut of what I'm going through. ICU, operation, without anesthetic, will I live, will I not? And then there's the meaning I give what I'm going through. So he survived the war. He was 6 years in the concentration camps, 4 in Auschwitz, 2 in Dachau, I think it was. He lost his wife in the war. And after the war, he developed this even more because he saw during the war that the people who had the most chance of survival, this was his observation, were not the ones who necessarily arrived at the camps robust and strong. It was the ones who had the most reasons to survive. I'm going to survive. I want to reunite with my family. Even if I know everyone in my family is being murdered, I'm going to survive in order to remarry and start another Jewish family. These were thoughts that were shared of what's keeping them going. I want to win the war against Hitler by bringing more children into the world that he tried to destroy. I'm going to repopulate the Jewish people. So whatever meaning a person can give to what they're going through, so he said he had the most astonishing insight. While they were operating on his body with no anesthetic, he said the following: I experienced the greatest imaginable liberation. I realized the Nazis had my body and they could do anything they wanted with it. But as long as they didn't own my mind, I was free and they were slaves. So it's an astonishing insight. There are various tzaddikim who, during an operation without anesthetic, actually by election would ask not to be anesthetized, and they would think Torah in that time. I can't do that. Rabbi Kiva was able to do that while he was being tortured. There are people, but that's an example where nothing changed outside, everything changes inside. And when things change inside, my understanding of outside also changes. When we change what's inside, I'm giving away a little secret that's going to come up next week probably. Just like faces are perfectly reflected in waters, you smile, water smiles back. That means, just like you smile, someone smiles back at you, or you smile, the mirror smiles back at you, what you're thinking, therefore feeling, that's what other people are picking up on. So when we change what's taking place in here, and therefore over here, the other person may not pick up on it straight away, but we can change them literally, because we're putting out different vibes, if you want to call it. We change ourselves, and when we change ourselves, we change the response of other people to a different us. So that's how it happens. It may not always be immediate, because they may not even trust that this is going to be a new track record of a new me. But when we change ourselves, we actually change the world. The whole universe is changed because of a thought. That's a separate discussion. We might get to it. Thank you for your indulgence.
Can we change it to 11 like we said?
Yeah, I think there was a request for 11 o'clock, and it seems that